你好，这里是由飞科电器冠名播出的新视野，欢迎收看。6月25号，第4届诺贝尔奖经济学家中国峰会在云南昆明举行。借峰会之机，本台记者对2位诺贝尔经济学奖获得者进行了面对面的专访。2位经济学家从各自研究的领域出发，为中国经济把脉，就如何看待中国经济新常态，以及云南如何把握住区位优势进行创新发展，如何激活创新潜能等方面的问题，展开了多元的解读。诺贝尔奖经济学家中国峰会始于2013年，论坛汇聚以诺贝尔经济学奖得主为核心的全球顶尖经济学家以及优秀企业家，旨在搭建中国与世界深度对话的平台。本届峰会的主题是区域经济的创新发展，中国与南亚、东南亚区域合作，由云南省政协、新华都商学院、北京大学国家发展研究院主办，云南省人民对外友好协会承办。今年峰会请到了2名诺贝尔经济学奖获得者，分别是埃德蒙·菲尔普斯以及埃里克·马斯金。埃里克·马斯金1950年出生于美国纽约，现任美国普林斯顿高等研究院教授。马斯金的研究在当代经济学最为基础的领域里做出了卓越的贡献，其中包括公共选择理论、博弈论、激励理论以及机制设计。2007年，诺贝尔经济学奖被授予了埃里克·马斯金等3名美国经济学家，表彰他们在创建和发展机制设计理论方面所做的贡献。马斯金最突出的贡献是将博弈论引入机制设计，该理论有助于经济学家、各国政府和企业识别在何种情况下市场机制有效，何种情况下市场机制无效，帮助人们确定有效的贸易机制、政策手段和决策过程。此外，这位诺贝尔经济学奖获得者还培养了一大批活跃在世界各地的一流经济学精英。在中国，很多著名的经济学家都师从于马斯金，如著名的马斯金的6大弟子，包括中国与世界经济研究中心主任李道奎、清华大学经济学院院长钱颖一、经济学家许成刚、白崇恩、王义江以及邹恒。
As we know that you got the Nobel Prize for your laying foundations for your mechanism design, right?
That's right.
Yes. Could you give us some simple example to help us to understand the principle of your theory?
I like to use a little example of dividing a cake as an illustration of mechanism design. Suppose that you have a cake that you want to divide between 2 children, Alice and Bob, and your goal is to divide the cake fairly between the 2. You might think that you've cut the cake equally, but Alice might think that Bob's piece is bigger, or Bob might think that Alice's piece is bigger. So this simple mechanism won't work where you cut the cake. So the question is there a mechanism which will solve the problem despite the fact that we don't know ourselves how the children see the cake? And it turns out that there is a very simple but ingenious solution. It's called the divide and choose method, where one child cuts, say Bob cuts the cake, and the other child, Alice, chooses which piece she takes for herself. And this solves the problem. Let me explain why. When Bob is cutting the cake, he has a strong incentive to cut it in such a way that from his point of view, the 2 pieces are exactly equal. Why? Because if one of the pieces is bigger, he knows Alice is going to take that one and he'll be left with a smaller piece. So he will cut the cake, so no matter which piece Alice takes, he's happy with the other one. So this is an example of mechanism design. How do you achieve a goal, in this case a fair division is the goal, without having all the information about the participants that you might want to have to reach that goal? That's the essence of mechanism design.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really very interesting example. Just like the example you gave us, We know that a very outstanding of your contribution is to introduce game theory into mechanism design, right?
That's right. And in fact, in the cake example, that was a game theory example because Bob had to think about what Alice's response would be when he cut the cake. So that's game theory. Right there.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And you know, now that Yunnan is also cooperating with other nations,
yes,
especially the Southeast Asia and South Asia, right, in many economic corridors. So we really want to know, based on your academic study, could you give us some advice on what kind of elements is very important for an ideal mechanism design?
Well, one thing that Yunnan is interested in doing is promoting the One Belt, One Road initiative, which involves cooperative projects with neighboring countries. Designing a cooperative agreement, designing a contract is very much like a cake, and the same principles that go into dividing a cake go into designing such a contract. So there's a close connection. And in fact, I think mechanism design can be used in designing contracts for international cooperation.
埃德蒙·菲尔普斯1933年出生于美国伊利诺伊州，被誉为现代宏观经济学的缔造者和影响经济学进程最重要的人物之一。2006年，埃德蒙·菲尔普斯因其在宏观经济跨期决策权衡领域所取得的研究成就而获得诺贝尔经济学奖。菲尔普斯教授最重要的贡献在于经济增长理论。他指出，通货膨胀不仅和失业率有关，也与企业及雇员对价格的预期有关。他在美国著名经济学家罗伯特·索洛之后，对经济增长的动态最优化路径进行分析，提出了著名的经济增长黄金律，从而正式确立了经济增长理论。他的理论在20世纪首先被运用在美国和西方一些发达国家的经济政策制定中。菲尔普斯曾多次访华，对中国经济的发展有深入而广泛的了解。在2005诺贝尔奖获得者北京论坛上，他通过模型分析得出结论：中国目前的发展模式从经济学角度来看是合理的，但也是复杂的。
We know that you got the Nobel Prize for your contribution on the study of the relationship between inflation and unemployment. What a guiding role do you think your theory can play in China's current economic stage?
It might seem that in the short run, the central bank can pump up employment, but there are good reasons for thinking that as inflation responds and then expectations of inflation respond, that stimulus by the monetary authorities will be ineffective. It'll be offset by higher inflation. So monetary policy really boils down to something rather simple and boring, namely trying to keep expectations of inflation pretty steady. That's the best way to keep inflation steady.
Just now you mentioned expectation, and I know that expectation is very important in your theory. So my question is about, do you think that the government and the media can do something to guide the market to avoid some irrational economic behaviors and possible risks?
Well, I'm sure that sometimes it can act usefully, the government can act usefully, but there are other times where governments just don't seem to be able to do that very well. I'm thinking, for example, of the housing boom in the early years after the year 2000. Now, there wasn't much inflation, but housing prices got higher and higher and higher. And the banks were lending more and more and more money. When they had no more money to lend, then they borrowed money. So then they became enormously overexposed. So when the bubble broke, it caused a near collapse of the banking system, and so governments, including the central bank, can help a whole lot will help a whole lot to the extent that they can avoid feeding bubbles. The trouble is that there's usually not very much agreement about whether we're in a bubble or not. That's the problem. Even now, with all the news so bad, there are certainly plenty of shrewd, thoughtful, highly intelligent people on Wall Street who think that we're going to come out okay. Who's to say they're wrong? We don't know.
第4届诺贝尔奖经济学家中国峰会以区域经济的创新发展，中国与南亚、东南亚区域合作为主题，其背景正是全球正在兴起的新一轮区域经济合作热潮。诺贝尔经济学奖得主埃里克·马斯金和埃蒙德·菲尔普斯在会上结合自己的研究领域与中国国情做了精彩的发言。其中，埃德蒙·菲尔普斯教授重点谈到了创新。他认为，中国可以成为全球经济体里非常重要的创新来源，可以跟美国相比，甚至超过美国。
I noticed that in one of your recent books, Mass Flourishing, you mentioned that grassroots innovation can be a key resource of the whole nation's economic development.
Yeah.
So why do you think grassroots innovation is so important? Because it's really found a very new perspective.
Where innovation was so explosive, namely Britain and America, from the early 19th century, say 1820, to right up until 1940, say, or beyond to 1960, where it was so explosive, it was very clear that the innovators were not aristocrats. They were not apparently super educated. They were not apparently even geniuses, although Abraham Lincoln, one of America's most famous and greatest presidents, was making a tour of the United States in 1858 to see to decide whether he should make an attempt to win the presidency. And he noticed something extraordinary that he wasn't prepared for. He said, why, in young America, there is a rage, a perfect passion for the new. That meant not just consumers, but presumably also people producing things who were passionate about producing a better product or producing it in a better way. Everybody seemed to be playing the game of making things better, finding new things. Of course, a country can wait for the occasional Jack Ma or Steve Jobs, who might come along once in a generation, but we don't have to do that. We can try to cultivate an economy, try to encourage a culture, to use a word I probably shouldn't use, but try to encourage a culture of experimentation, exploration, but above all, imagining how things could be different.
You know that in 2014, our Prime Minister Li Keqiang also put forward a proposal of mass entrepreneurship and innovations. So could you give us some advice on how to stimulate our grassroots innovations?
Probably the most important thing to do is to try to turn back the attitudes and beliefs that seem these days to be getting in the way of innovation. In some ways, the most serious instance of this, the most serious problem here is that there's been a kind of a new ethic of protection that's grown up in the West. There's this idea that if somebody starts a company, he or she will have to take care of the employees for the rest of their lives. Will have to protect them, make sure they don't forget their umbrella and everything. And if that doesn't always work, well, bring on the government. So make it so that it shall be a function of the government to protect companies. Not only don't let them fail, but don't let them lose market share. Don't let them suffer a decline of sales. What happens when that kind of ethic takes over? Well, then if some innovator or person who would like to be an innovator has an idea for a product which will succeed only to the extent that it takes business away from the existing company, then the person contemplating the innovation is going to say, wait a minute, if I succeed, the government will come in and bail out the existing firm, I'll lose all the sales I gained, and I'll fail. There's not room for me in this industry because the incumbent firms, the ones already established, the established firms, are being protected by the government.
埃里克·马斯金则发表了主题为“公私合营与政府支出限制”的演讲。他认为，在非常大的工程和项目中，公共部门可以承担私营部门所不能承担的风险。其次，由于项目涉及到公共产品，公共部门参与能够使所有人受益，能够确保充分地提供这些公共产品，也可以确保这些公共产品能够得到财政支持。但在演讲中，埃里克·马斯金特别强调，在 PPP 模式中，政府应该对开支进行限制，控制成本。
Now China has experienced a period of new normal, right? Under these circumstances, a lot of local governments, they are promoting actively public-private partnership.
Yes.
Right. Also including Yunnan province, of course, to achieve a long-term, stable and effective cooperation between the government and the public capital, social capital. What shall we do?
One point that I made is that we can't think of the government as being entirely monolithic. Government itself is made up of different parts. For example, in Yunnan there's the provincial level government, but there's also the city level government. And those two levels of government may not have the same objectives. And so it's important, if the city is undertaking a public-private partnership, perhaps constructing some new roads in the city, that they have the right incentives to take on projects which are good not just for the city but for the whole region. And I suggested that one way of doing that is for the provincial leadership to put spending limits on city governments so that they don't choose projects which are going to be too costly for the whole province. That's one of the conclusions that I came to.
云南虽然地处中国西南边陲，但作为中西部地区的重要省份，与老挝、缅甸、越南毗邻，国境线长达4060公里。在“一带一路”战略中，努力成为面向南亚、东南亚辐射中心，定义了云南未来发展的新坐标。而“一带一路”战略的实施，将使云南省从对外开放的后方转变成前沿，在国家整体对外开放、安全、能源、交通等战略格局中，将起到重要的、不可取代的作用。 两位经济学家对云南的区位优势以及怎样借势发展也进行了独到的分析。
As we know that the theme of this summit is regional economic innovation development, what kind of geographical advantage do you think Yunnan has, and how could we take advantage of that?
Kunming was part of the Silk Road. It's always could be viewed as facing the West. So there is presumably in the genes of people born here a kind of orientation towards contact with to the south and to the west, and trade with them and exchanges of ideas. And
this is my first visit here, but it's obvious that one geographical advantage is the beautiful environment, the mountains, the water, the weather. All of these are very attractive, not only for the residents but for tourists. Also, Yunnan is blessed with other natural resources, minerals, tin. I think it will be important going forward that Yunnan balance the environmental resources with the say the mineral resources.
As for mass entrepreneurship and innovations, comparing with the eastern developed regions of China, do you think the local people in Yunnan province also can share the same opportunities?
See, I don't have that crystal ball to tell you to be able to say what the opportunities will be over the next 10 years. But I'm willing to assume that there will be opportunities in China, plenty of opportunities. You know, it may take a generation to get to the level of what, to use English slang, might be called business savvy, having a sense of what would work and what would not work, by virtue of having some experience and knowing the experiences of some others and that kind of thing. But look, it's a great game. It's the only game in town. It's the only change, adventure, exploration. That's the only way there is to have a full, rewarding, a full life. The only way we have to flourish.
经济新常态也是本次诺贝尔奖经济学家中国峰会上的高频词之一。2014年，习近平在河南考察时指出，我国发展仍处于重要的战略机遇期，我们要增强信心，从当前中国经济发展的阶段性特征出发，适应新常态，保持战略上的平常心态。这是新一代中央领导人首次以新常态描述新周期中的中国经济。此后引起了国内外学界关于新常态的热烈讨论。国内学者普遍认为，新常态新特征实质上就是进入了高效率、低成本、可持续的中高速增长阶段。新常态从字面上看，新就是有益于旧制，常态就是时常发生的状态。新常态就是不同以往的相对稳定的状态，这是一种趋势性不可逆的发展状态，意味着中国经济已经进入了一个与过去30年高速增长期不同的新阶段。谈到中国经济的新常态，两位经济学家不约而同地认为，这是一个属于创新的时代。
What do you think of China's economic stage now and the future perspective?
Well, China has come an enormous way since the reforms that Deng Xiaoping initiated over 35 years ago. And in a way, its success makes it harder to keep up the same pace of improvement. for many years, China was catching up to the West. The closer it comes to catching up, the harder it is to take the next step, because previously China could rely on borrowing discoveries, technology from the West. At this point, China has to create its own innovations, its own technology, and of course that's harder to do. So it's natural to expect that the rate of growth in China will now be slower than it once was. But I think for the long term, the prospects here are bright, as long as China keeps in mind the factors that allowed it to get to this point, which is liberalization of markets, letting markets do a lot of the work, promoting competition, and promoting entrepreneurship.
It was inevitable that the largest gains to be obtained from urbanization, industrialization, and an export push were going to be exhausted at some point. They can't go on forever. They can't keep on accumulating higher and higher and higher. These gains from reallocating resources, putting people in cities where they can communicate easily with each other, putting workers into factories and office buildings, those gains are inherently going to take the economy only so far. For sustained economic growth, there's got to be sustained innovation.
世界是不断变化和发展的。埃德蒙·菲尔普斯以及埃里克·马斯金两位经济学家，正是因为在前人经济学的理论基础上进行了修正和补充以及创新，登上了世界经济学领域的巅峰。而如今，对于中国经济的未来，云南的定位和发展，也需要我们不断的刷新认知和梳理知识。两位经济学家带来的多元化的思考，值得我们深入的领会和研究。感谢他们远道而来，为我们奉献了一场异常精彩的思想盛宴。好的，这里是由飞鸽电器冠名播出的新视野，下期节目再见。